Thank you very much to William Evans, who says, for some reason, Leonard Sachs comes to mind. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, presenting for your delight and delectation the lovely Liz Truss, accompanied by Mr. Kwasi Kwarteng and his prodigious package. Gavel comes down on the piss-poor performance. Pair of parliamentary profligates enter stage left. Thank you. Absolutely, indeed. That's almost exactly the image that I would like to command and bring to the table, to this little theatre of YouTube. Leonard Sachs, who was the MC in the good old days, and almost really the presiding influence. He's a figure worthy of celebrating, not just for his remarkable verbosity, which of course was all written and he learnt it, but for his dedication to recreating the spirit of the Victoria Music Hall. And running from 1953 to 1983, this beloved TV programme became a staple of British television viewing, reviving a nostalgic slice of entertainment for a modern audience. And Sachs brought a linguistic flourish which didn't really exist in the original music halls, I'm afraid, but it was both mesmerising and comically overblown. And his introductions to acts and his references to people with flowers in their hair, "What an orchidaceous hat, madam," often featured polysyllabic phrases and archaic turns of phrase, setting the tone for the evening. A typical example would be something like, "And now, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, in this hallowed temple of merriment, I present to you a purveyor of prestidigitation unparalleled, a conjurer of consummate craft, the ineffable, the incomparable, Mr. Cyril Critchlow." And his deliverer, for your delectation, your very own. And Sachs' delivery was punctuated by dramatic pauses, delighting audiences with his "ooh, ooh," so they would say as he came out with another long word. This dedication to to lengthy words was commendable, and so was his wit and whimsy. The programme was conceived as a homage to the Victorian, the Edwardian music halls, a popular form of working-class entertainment, and set in a meticulously recreated music hall environment that was then sort of modified for the television with these sort of extraordinary things at the front of the stage that concealed the large lights and the microphones. And it featured an audience dressed in period costume, with acts drawn from traditional music hall repertoire and then from international repertoire, because the British Variety Artists Federation was languishing a bit. The setting was the Leeds City Varieties Theatre, which still exists and still looks fantastic. A venue steeped in history, having hosted music hall performances since 1860, and for 30 years the show captured the imagination of viewers with its longevity, owing much to Leonard Sachs and the nostalgic charm of the format and his sesquipedalian inclination. And the BBC ensured that a mix of emerging and veteran talents kept the show fresh, even as it leaned heavily on tradition. And so somebody who was a stand-up comedian would be pushed onto the stage but made to wear an Edwardian collar. And the big names that I remember, particularly people like Dame Hilda Brackett and Dr. Evadne Hinge, this comic musical duo, beloved for their eccentric and quintessentially British dedication to Noel Coward and various slightly obscure. Ivan Novello, slightly obscure musical tastes. Ken Dodd bringing his signature manic energy and the array of Diddy men to the hall. Dodd was a regular favourite, and Dodd was uncontrollable. He would just go on and on. but was quite spectacular. Danny LaRue, again, a favourite, a female impersonator, who embodied the glam and the glitz of the music hall tradition, and she was just perfect in the setting, and brought a lot of glamour. And Arthur Askey, another perfect turn, a stalwart of British comedy, cheeky humour, perfectly at home in the show's vaudeville-esque atmosphere. Cyril Critchlow was a local magician whose sleight of hand harkened back to the golden age of stage trickery. There was an international act that I remember vividly, that was on two shows, where the fellow just produced buckets and buckets and buckets of flowers, tossing them out until the stage was more festooned than a florist's. And these flowers would fly out of bags, out of trays, and would automatically sort of pin themselves onto the stage floor, or would be put into vases, and there was nowhere to move at the end of that performance. It was staggering in its simplicity and its speed and its panache. And then the Beverly Sisters were, they were certainly there once. I think they might have been there twice, but harmonising their way into viewers' hearts. And then there were a few sopranos and tenors from the local Northern Opera houses. It was the show was enriched with traditional acts like jugglers, ventriloquists, and extraordinary turns. It was more than a television show; it was a cultural institution, and in an era increasingly dominated by rock and roll and modern entertainment, it stood as a reminder of the enduring appeal of laughter and music and simple pleasures. And it wasn't the only show on British television during the 1960s and 70s to draw on that material and those songs. The Black and White Minstrels did the same thing. But that's a show that was already an embarrassment at the time it was being staged. And there was one season when the performers didn't black up at all, and that didn't seem to work. And back they were again, challenging cultural and basic norms of behaviour, but still using the same songbook as the good old days. But they lacked Leonard Sachs. And Sachs' theatricality and dedication to the music hall ethos had made him a central figure in the revival, ensuring that viewers were transported to an age of gaslit race stages and raucous applause. And in an age of cynicism and irony, the sincerity of the good old days feels almost revolutionary. Perhaps we need a bit more Leonard Sachs in our lives, a touch of unbridled verbosity and unapologetic charm. After all, who wouldn't want to hear that they are ravishing denizens of the delightful, the delectable, and the distinguished? It's waving his handkerchief. And it was a defining memory of my childhood. It made me want to open the dictionary and the thesaurus at a very young age, and I did. And I realised these words were not obscure and were not some sort of magic. They were just ordinary words that weren't very often used. And I like the thought that that one can weave in the nebulous plethora of slightly underused vocabulary. Leonard Sachs had a passion for alliteration. He wouldn't have talked about the nebulous something. He would talk about the nebulous nemuphar of nobility, or the miculous virility. he would he would have enjoyed that sort of combination. and I think it's very much to be emulated and enjoyed. Emulated and enjoyed. And if Liz Truss reminds you of Leonard Sachs, then she's done something good in her life.